Hey everyone, good evening, and thank you for joining me and the organisers and speakers for this evening's August PyLadies Dublin August virtual meetup. My name is Vicky, if you don't know me already, and I'm gonna go through some announcements. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to Dublin Maker, who's our community partner. So we have two talks this evening. We have one by Enrico on poetry and Python packaging done right. And then we have Sorcha. They'll be talking about a lightning talk about Python imports, reloads, and associated dangers. So that's our agenda. We kicked off on time, more or less. Although I'll just keep going. And may or may not have time for Q&A, but if you need to send in questions, you can do it live chat on YouTube Live, and I have Michael and Lei who can actually kind of share the questions with our speakers on Zoom, or you can type the questions on chat and meetup, or on CryptPad, which you'll find on the meetup page, this evening's meetup page, and I'll pass it on to the speakers, and they'll actually share their answers. So for a few announcements, I don't know if anyone has heard me shout on Twitter. Sorcha Python Day is coming on September 9th, so 9/9th. It's coming soon, in a few weeks' time. This year I want to do something on Sorcha Python Day. I've asked Lei and Chuck from Python Ireland if they're interested in doing a collab, because I think the day falls on Python Ireland as well, their meetup day, and they're interested as well. So we're still in early days trying to figure out what we want to do. So if you're thinking of wanting to get involved, want to speak about your wee project, demo your project, even given a workshop, we'll have to figure out how to do that, how to do a workshop with Sorcha Python Electronics. Or you have ideas, just let us know, dublin@pyladies.com. It's Ada Fruit is the one that's doing this Sorcha Python Day, so you can sign up to their newsletter, Ada Fruit Python for microcontrollers. That's the link there. This one here is their the latest newsletter that's just got sent out. So they'll have more information about what's happening around the world on Sorcha Python Day as well. So we have a speaker who's interested in speaking in our October PyLadies Dublin meetup, but they also are interested in seeing what you are interested in in what her talk topic will be. So fraud detection landscape, women in AI, and natural language processing. And please vote for your favorite topic. On that form, it's literally just a question, what you're listening to, and those three options, and just let us know so we can tell our speaker. And we will update that page once we have selected the talk. So PyLadies Global, which the PyLadies Dublin is a chapter of, they are building up to an election for a PyLadies Global Council election. The nominations have been open since August 6th, and so there's two types. You can be a candidate to be voted on, or you can register for an appointment to be on the PyLadies Global Council. You need to be a PyLadies member to vote, as well as putting yourself forward to be on the council. The deadline is at the end of August. Information, the link is there, elections.pyladies.com. So check it out. So Going Far has a mentorship program. It's for people who are migrants living in Ireland. And if you're over 18 and you're interested in this 3-month program, the deadline is this Friday, and check out so you can apply Going Far that link there, Going Far type form. And I just left that up there for anyone who still interested in this workshop, deploying a Python app in Red Hat OpenShift. So let us know if you're interested in that as well. And if you're interested in speaking for an upcoming PyLadies Dublin, submit your details to that PyLady type form. I left this one up here. the PyLadies on Dev2. So if you are using Dev.2, which is a nice blogging platform for your dev articles or sharing your projects or podcasts or whatnot, PyLadies have a kind of a organization page there. If you want to be part of that, just let me know and I'll add you to it, and you can share your articles with us on it. Chuck and Lace are also on dev.2 as well. So do check it out. It's a really cool platform. I'm addicted to posting stuff on it right now. And our next PyLadies is building conversational bot using Twilio and Python, and it's going to be on Tuesday, September 15th. It's another virtual session, and the meetup, the event page is already up on Meetup, so check that out. And other events, so as I said, Python Ireland has a meetup on September 9th, so I'm in discussion with them and seeing if we can do something that day. It's still early days yet. But keep an eye out on python.ie for their updates. Other events. Oh yes. So Joe from PyLadies Dublin has asked me to share this event at RTE, Network Visualization and Association Rules. You can check out via that link, the meetup.com link there on the crypt pad. And if you find if there's other events, virtual events, which I keep a live blog on, via this link, this codinggrace.com link, it's all the different virtual tech events that are happening around in and around Ireland. So if there's anything missing, any kind of opportunities and grants and stuff like that, let me know and I'll update that page. So that is the end of the announcements. So I will put you over to Enrico, who will talk about poetry and Python packaging done right.
Thanks, Vicky. Thanks, everyone, for attending. I wanted to bring you into the story, which is poetry for Python. I'm not talking about literature, but we talk about code and Python code. And it's coming from some personal experience. I call it Tales from the Land of the Cows. And you'll discover soon why. And we tried personally and with my colleagues to try to fight the dependency hell curse. But we'll get to that after I explain you that I'm currently a senior software engineer at Cantus. And our job is to make cows happier using computer vision and AI. If you are interested and curious about the company, you can look into some more details. I've been working before at AWS services and few startup and also some not so good personal adventures in entrepreneurship, but that's how you learn stuff, by making mistakes. Cantus is a startup 4 years in, an amazing team growing. And if you're looking for an interesting job, just take a look at the website. There's a couple of positions opening. We're a Python shop and work a lot with computer vision and AI. If you're curious, get on the website. So the dependency hell, what are we talking about? So if you try to play with Python, probably the most powerful aspect of Pythons are the work you don't have, the code you don't have to write, some code that someone else wrote for you, and call them packages, and can be as simple, not so simple, as pandas, for example. The top one of the top reasons why probably you join the Python ecosystem if you are a data scientist. Well, I'm not a data scientist, by the way. I'm a developer and working with data pipelines, more of a data engineering task. But pandas, and you know that when you want to use a library, usually it comes attached with some information, a detail, important detail is the version of pandas that you're using. In this case, it's marked as a string 103. And which becomes into the description pandas, I want it to be 1.0.3. But then probably you're not using the package alone, you're using that package maybe from another package, which the one you probably built. This is one of our packages, which is doing feed event detection at the pen level. And it's a specific version again, and it uses pandas. It gets crazy when you think that another component, in this case, it's an Airflow instance that uses that component that uses the library. And this package in a package in a package seems complicated, but it gets more complicated when you think that the package is not a linear relationship, just one between the other. Probably the Airflow instance uses a lot of other packages like Airflow, Datadog, database access, test, Boto to access AWS services, and each one of those use different packages. And if you want to try to manage a list with all these packages, it can get pretty wild, and it can get as wild as this is an example of one of our smaller packages. It still can be seen, but if it gets into bigger packages that use other packages, then if you try to visualize how many packages are involved, it gets a little bit crazier. And this is really an example of the big guy on the top that just a fraction of it is essentially unreadable and absolutely unmanageable. So you probably guess you're not going to do this and trying to manage this complex relationship by yourself, and you want to probably use a tool. And in Python, the first tool you will face is pip, and it will be as easy as doing, for example, to install pandas, it will be pip install pandas. And if you want a specific version of pandas, you want to express that you want a specific version of that package through the double equal mark. And this will get a package that actually comes not from Magic, but from a repository, which is PyPy. And if you go to that URL, actually, you will see all the details about the package and previews and future versions. So you can install specific versions with specific features that you want. And probably you're not going to do these installs when you get a little bit more into the language. You're not going to do them directly one package per package, but you're going to store them into a file, which is called requirements. We're going to go into some examples of how to use it. And if you are working on your environment and added the package manually, as I did before, and you want to capture all the packages that you've done so far, you're going to freeze your pip packages list into a file, which is called, in this case, requirements, and that's the syntax to do it. And we're going to do it together. And the problem is, what if you want to install pip? You cannot use pip to install pip. And if you don't have pip, there's, of course, system-level packages that allow you to get them in. But if you don't have it, it's as simple as running a curl command, which is another tool that you need to have installed in your system in some way, and Python. What came after what I was trying to manage our stuff a little bit more in a cleaner way was this nice little tool which is called pip tools. It's interesting because instead of having a requirements files, you give them a template which by default has to be named requirements.in, but it can be a different name. And then you run this command pip compile, and it gives you the requirements. We're going to go into an example of why you want to do it. But if you, as me, like look up and try to find the best way to do it, you will find that using pip directly is discouraged, and I strongly encourage you to look elsewhere. As if you did like me at the end of last year, trying to find the best way to do it, you were suggested to go to pipenv, which is the officially recommended Python packaging tool from python.org. The only problem is that it was at the time of writing this presentation back in March and February, I think, around that, it was stuck to a version back dated November 2018. So it was very old, and there was major activity in the repo in GitHub, but no release out. And it actually unstuck. It got unstuck in April, and now a few versions came out, so it's resurrected, but probably not the best solution. And I was kind of discouraged. There were a lot of issues open, and nothing actually happening. So I kind of got discouraged, but I tried to do my best with the tools that I had. So I wanted to give you just an idea. As we were saying, let's say that I want to install a package, which is Python cfonts. I'm going to do pip install. And then after I've done that, I can run my cfonts tool, which is written in Python and writes nice banners in very fancy way if you want, and you can experiment as much as you want with this on your own time. But what you want to do, as we were saying before, you're probably not going to do this installation, especially if you want to share your code with someone else. It can become a little bit tricky. So what you're going to do probably is capture your requirements, the package that your project needs in a file, which is called requirements.txt, just by convention. It's not needed. And to use that file, you use pip install -r requirements. Sorry, I have to go into the right folder, cluster training 01. Yep. Training, sorry, wrong training, cluster poetry training 01. And then do pip install -r requirement, which, am I not in the, oh, sorry. Pip install -r requirement.txt, and that's the basis for any work on Python. And then you can run cfont. The solution that I tried first was instead using this requirement, because if you look at the state of your packages, actually, once you install just that single thing, you will see that it gets in not only cfonts, but a dependency of that package. So it will bring in this version. And by the way that pip phrase works, it will ping to the specific version. And if someone needs a slightly different version, you're just stuck to that version. So what I wanted to do, and what I did initially, was instead using something like this, which is called requirements template for the tool. And going into pip tools, here when we do a pip compile, and it should work. But the command is not there because pip compile itself is a package. So what you would do normally in these situations is that you would have the only static requirements file, dev or whatever it required, you install it. That contains just pip tools. And then after that, you can run pip compile, and it will generate a nice requirements.txt file. It is important to see here that sometimes you experiment with packages and you get things in, and then at a certain point you want to do a cleanup and want to say, okay, I want to remove this thing because I tried it out, and what other dependencies should go away because it gets in free packages, but I don't need them anymore because I'm removing this guy, and it was bringing in this additional information, that tree that we were saying before. You want to cut the branch of the tree, and that is not possible with traditional pip tools. And pip compile instead just gives you just put the high-level packages that you need, and then it will build the tree for you. And the other interesting thing, it will also say for each one of these where they come from. For example, cfonts come from the file, Colorama comes from Python cfonts. So you can trace which packages require what, and you can manage it better. But the best way to do it is, I would say, this is just for simple projects. You need a package management tool like pipenv, sorry. Pipenv is based on, let's say, copying and stealing, however you want to say it, from an interesting approach that was taken elsewhere in other languages, notably from Node word, from JavaScript word. And the idea is that you will describe what you need in terms of dependencies in a file, which is this pip file. And then essentially, as we did with the template, it will bring in all the dependencies. What is interesting here is that if you do, again, if I do pipenv, I left a few comments, then install pipenv first, because pipenv is a package itself, and then I'm going to do a pipenv install. Okay. What it does, it is looking at the dependency, trying to see in that tree if all the requirements make sense, if someone requires a version of pandas, for example, 1.0, and you only have 1.25 in one package, that won't work together because they are incompatible. And then we will install all the packages that are needed and create this file, which is a lock. A lock is essentially a lock on the specific versions, and that gives you reproducibility of your dependency tree. So every time that you install, it will only use the files indicated in the lock, even if new updates came out and you only specify that you want cfonts any version. But instead, the lock file will say that cfonts is blocked to version 1.3 and can only be 1.3. And the additional thing that tools like pipamp provide you is that you don't have, if you've been trying to work with Python for a little bit more than experiments, you know that you probably want to manage your packages in a clean way and not pollute the main package, because they will go, all packages that you play with by default will go into the system packages. And instead, you probably want to manage those packages in a separate, what we call a virtual environment, something that will isolate those packages from the others. And pipamp will also manage that. In this specific case, I'm running already in a virtual environment because I didn't want to pollute my stuff. But if I want to go into the virtual environment and run commands there, what I would do is run pipamp shell, and I will be into that environment. I'm gonna go out from the one I was in, just to show you. So here I don't have cfonts. That's sorry. No, it's not. Sorry. I'm gonna close it so it's clean. And if I do pipamp shell, I will be in the environment. Anyway, and then you can run your stuff. It is important to note that, and we will see also in Poetry in details, that here we're saying that with the asterisk, we're saying that we want any version of cfonts. So anything will work when we generate the log file. And that can be instead said that I want version 2.0 something, and anything will work. And so you can specify a little bit more soft rules on your tools, and then we get to poetry in a moment. I found through the years a good way to prepare your virtual environments with a lot of tooling. I think this is the best article that I found that was kind of collapsing all these good practices into one place. I subscribe 100% to this one. I would only add this additional piece on top of it, which would make your life better. But if you're looking into a proper way to get set up into not only data science, but for any Python project, I would strongly suggest you to look into this article, how to set up an awesome Python environment for data science or anything else, but it's not only for data science. And it's a good alternative to more complex things like Conda or Anaconda, if you are into data science. Poetry. Poetry just reached version 1.0, and but is still a solid and mature solution. The important thing with Poetry and many other package management solutions is be confident with what semantic versioning is. It is well documented into this website. If you haven't been exposed, please do and check out. But essentially, it captures in the 1.0.0, it captures if the last number changes, then it's just a bug fix. Essentially, you can probably get that change in blindfolded. No, you don't have to look into any, you won't expect any impact on your code. The minor, when 1.0 goes to 1.1, it is supposedly to be a backwards compatible change, but it adds functionality and changes some behavior of the system. So you might expect some changes. If the first number changes of the three, then it would be probably an incompatible API changes. And just to be clear, not necessarily if you see 1.0.0, it means that the author of the package uses semantic versioning. So you probably better check the package maintainer or within your team as well to decide what approach you're going to take. There are several, and I found semantic versioning pretty effective, especially working cross teams. Semantic versioning in Poetry is slightly different. When you specify a package version, you will get 1.2 star or tilde 1.2 or curly 1.2.3, and they all have different meanings and they tend to be the best choice possible. So you would imagine that if you specify 1.2 star, then it means that it gets everything less than 1.3.0. So everything that is here will get in. And the same is the tilde version. We'll just get everything which you didn't specify. And with the carré, instead, it is slightly more complex because it depends on how many zeros. So it locks on the zero, and the rule will be if it doesn't have any zero in front, then it will be everything but a major. If it has a zero, it will lock on the first non-zero. So it can be all the 0.2 version, but not the 0.3. And this will be every 1.0. So I prefer personally to use this syntax and even be more explicit about the version from which I start. And of course, you can fix the version. But to go back into Poetry, adding and keeping your dependency the dependent packages in order is pretty easy. You could just use, for example, to add new package Poetry add pandas, and you don't have to go into a file. It will be the file that describes the version will be changed to reflect that. And the other option is also you can do a Poetry update to get all the changes that you need. And again, also in this case, the magic happens through the means of that log file that we saw in pipenv. Well, how this translates into actual real workflow. So first thing, you want to install Poetry. There's also a thing to install Poetry without having pip. That's a direct installation. It will install a few packages that are needed, and essentially what you will need to do is create a file that describes your packages. In this case, I'm using something that I have here, but if you don't have it, you can say, okay, create a new project scaffolding called my package, and you will find that it will, again, in the wrong folder, yeah, 03. Let's bring it here. And the my package contains that file that we were talking about before. And it will create by default version 0.1. We'll get a few information by default. And sorry. And we'll get some information by default, and then it will create a package with the name of the package with the underscores. It creates a few things, create a test folder for you with some standard tests, PyTest and unit test style, and it will take a few variables that we will set up only the first time, and we'll add the dependency on Python 3.7 in this case and PyTest. And then, as we were saying before, if you want to add a README file as well, but if you want to add a package from within the place where you have your package. So I'm going into, sorry, is it 04, and then my package, that's where we are. I'm gonna add C fonts, and it will go into PyPy, find that C fonts is the most recent up-to-date version is 1.3.0, read all the dependency, find all the dependencies that are needed and install them into your virtual environment. If you already have one, or will create a virtual environment for you on the fly in case you don't have it. And what it will do, it will go here. Yep. Where is my project? So it added the cfonts dependency only. So if you've seen, it was installing a lot of stuff, but the main dependency is cfonts and everything else comes with it. And the other things that it did, it brought into the log file all the specific dependencies that you needed. And it will just maintain this file for you. Every time you do poetry update, it will look if new files are available and will do all the updates for you in the log file, and you will have reproducible builds just by running something that will work exactly the same way in your computer and in your friend's computer, in your colleague computer, just by running this command, poetry install root. Means look at the log file and install everything that I need. In my case, I'm gonna go into another shell session, and I'm gonna go into that folder for a second. Yep. Okay. So here I don't have anything, right? Just virtualenv, the standard, super standard stuff. And if I do poetry, I will do install // no root. You can look into the documentation why I'm passing no root. So it's so that a package is essentially non-existent. I run this one before and it didn't find it. So it is creating a virtual environment for me. It is installing all the packages according to the PyProject file that I created. And now if I do pip freeze, which before was not showing anything, it will still show anything because this is not the virtual environment. To get into the virtual environment, I have to run poetry shell, pip shell maybe. Poetry shell. Now I'm into that environment, and if I do pip free, I have all the packages that I wanted, including cfonts. And it works. So it is interesting to note that poetry also has a way of packaging your file. If you need to create a distribution package, you can do poetry build. There's no file installed here, but it won't work. But you can create the package your files in both wheel and dist firm and source version, and it will just create all the files into a folder, and then you can distribute it. So that's essentially the last part, where poetry just offers also package management, not only dependency. Just for us, after a few months of iteration, we came up with a few additions to poetry. Of course, we do a testing and use PyTest and PyTest-cobb. If you're not using, look into it. Black for formatting and MyPy. This is all put together into an internal template, so you don't have to reinvent it all the time. So around the time we improved this and added Docker Compose configuration files. Docker ignore, if you don't using it, please do. It's very useful, like git ignore. We have some, say, delicate information into it, not really secrets, but some stuff that we don't want to disclose even in private repos. We use git to encrypt it. It's all the repo, not very maintained a lot, but it works perfectly. For settings, we tend to use environment variables and Dynaconf. If you haven't used it, look into it. CircleCI provides the glue around it to do all the continuous integration and continuous deployment. And we use PyPy Cloud servers to push the packages that Poetry builds into our private servers for consumption and for internal consumption and reusing software. If you're curious about the comparison between poetry and PPM. These are interesting couple of links. I'm gonna send the slides to Vicky to share. And the first article is the most interesting, which is a follow-up on the previous one, which tracks the inactivity of PPM, which now is back to life, but probably is now in very good shape at the moment because a lot of work has to be done, but it's getting better. But if you're looking into an alternative, I think poetry is interesting. Thank you. And I wanted to go leave time for a few questions if you wanted, but I don't know how that works, Vicky.
All right, hold on. Folks can hear me. Probably won't see me because if I do gallery view, we're gonna see a whole bunch of people on the Zoom, so all the organizer and stuff. So thanks again, Enrico.
Vicky,
yeah.
I can't hear you.
Can't hear me. Hold on. All right. Can you hear me, Enrico?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Enrico, for the talk. So we do have a few minutes to spare. Do people have any questions? You can type it on the live chat on YouTube there, and I have Lay and Michael as well who can actually pass on the questions. If not, we can I can ask Sorcha to ready and waiting to share their screen. So I suppose it's kind of easier because it's kind of hard with the with YouTube. It's kind of hard to see one too many, you know, like you can't really. Oh, yeah, especially when there's about 20-second delay lag in the stream. So thanks, Enrico. If there's any questions, I'm gonna get people just to type them on the live chat anyway. And if there's any other kind of I'll email them to you, and I'll put them on the crypt pad, and we can actually you can actually share your answers from that, and then anyone who's kind of RSVP'd on the meetup page, I'll follow up with the post-event message, so everyone can actually get the update as well as your link to the slides and things like that. So now, is that okay, Enrico? So I'm gonna unpin you. Thanks again. I'm gonna have Sorcha now talking about Python imports, reloads, and associated dangers. So I hand the floor over to you.
Hello, everybody. This is my first virtual presentation, so it's really weird to not be able to tell who's watching or how they're reacting, but I'll do my best. I'm mostly here to save you from falling down the same rabbit hole that I fell down and lost a half a day's work to, or similar rabbit holes in relation to reloads. The specific example that I hit was to do with enums, so I'm going to talk a lot about enums as well. So just a quick aside about enums, because enum is short for enumerated type. I definitely studied this back when I was in college. That was some time ago now, and I haven't seen them all that often in Python, but they do exist in Python. There's an enum library from which you can import enum. For the purpose of this demonstration, all you really need to know is that a member of an enum like this. So this is an enum that is inheriting from the enum class called color, and it has members called red, green, and blue. And the important thing that you need to know is that 99 times out of 100, you can assume that color.red is color.red is color.red, and color.green is color.green is color.green. You can basically treat them as constants. And so I never really questioned it. So I'm going to do a live demo. I am intellectually aware that live demos are supposed to be a bad idea, but I've never personally had the experience of a live demo going terribly, so I thought I'd give that a try. Yeah, this is a reconstruction of my workday, hopefully with less swearing. Okay, so I have very simplified, sorry, Vicky, can you just confirm that you can see the Sublime screen and the terminal there, yes?
Yes, I can see both.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to assume the people on the stream can too. So I have two very simplified files here. Obviously, the real files I was working with were a lot more complicated than this. I have file B down here, which just imports enum and creates a class inheriting from enum, which has enum member 1 and enum member 2. Which I would have given different names if I'd realized how hard those were to pronounce. And then I have file A, which inherits which imports in my enum from file B, and they both have constants in them called myconst. So personally, I always work when I'm trying to understand a bit of Python, if I'm trying to see what's going on, I always work in the interpreter rather than working in files. I just find it works better for the way my mind works. So I'm trying to figure out something in these two files. So I have imported file A and I have imported file B. And I am aware that file A imports file B, imports my enum from file B. And I am always in the back of my head working on the assumption that color.red is color.red, my enum.enum member 1 is my enum.enum member 2, .enum member 1. So I'm working away and I'm working on the thing I'm trying to debug, and I print out file A.myconst and it's foo, and I'm like, oh no, it's not supposed to be foo, it's supposed to be bar. Okay, so I change it. And I'll save it, and I'll print it, and it's still foo. Maybe I need to import it again. Still foo. Okay. At this point, what I actually did for the first several times I was going through this process was I closed the Python interpreter, reopened the Python interpreter, imported file A, imported file B, and then it was bar. But I got really sick of doing that, so I went and I did some research, and I came across this import lib reload, which basically just says, no, I actually want to re-import that file. And I was quite proud of myself for finding this because I have ADHD and research is hard. So I reload file A, and now I print my const, and it's bar. Brilliant. Okay, so now I go back to my original thread of debugging, and I'm taking a look at file B, my const, and it's strawberry, but it's supposed to be orange. But now I know how to fix this, so I change it, and I save it, and I reload file B, and file B is orange. And I go back digging into the debugging that I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm constantly assuming that my enum member 1 is my enum.enum member 1, and it isn't. And this is where I actually lost all the time, because I thought that this was actually a problem in my code, in the thing that I was trying to fix, rather than this happening. And it took me some time to figure it out, and I sent it to a colleague, and he, like I explained to the colleague exactly what I was doing, and it wasn't happening for him. And I later realized that that was because he wasn't working in the interpreter, he was running files, and therefore he wasn't reloading things. Okay, I'm now going to, I think I maybe have a slide for this. Yeah, so I'm going to add a few quick print statements, and we'll try it again, and we see if we can see what it's doing. I have tried to learn to use PyDebug, to use all sorts of different debuggers, and in the end of the day, I debug by putting in print statements. I know that I am not alone in this, so I did what most Python programmers do. I added some print statements, and I did it again. So I import file A, and we see a loose print statement, a loose print in file B, and then a loose print in file A. So the Python interpreter just starts at the start of the file and works its way down along through the file. So the first thing that we do when we import file A is we import my enum from file B. And so we go and run through file B to get my enum, and in that process we get to this print statement. Then when we're done going through that file, and it will, even after like if that print was after this definition, it would still happen. And then we finish going through file A and we print that print statement as well. And then when we import file B, we don't get any print statements because we've already done all of this stuff. So the Python interpreter is like, I'm fine, I've done it, I don't need to do it again, it's grand. When we reload file A, no, not import, reload. When we reload file A, we only get the print statement from file A. We don't get the print statement from file B. So at this point, I'm starting to actually understand what's going on here, sort of. So at this point, I expect that the two versions of the enum will still be the same because we haven't reloaded the definition of the enum at all. But if I reload file B and then check, that's where it's gotten different. So when we reloaded file A, we only got the print statement in file A. And when we reloaded file B, we got the print statement in file B. I did a bit more digging on this and got a bit of a better understanding. So I'm going to run through the steps one more time, adding one more element just to make it a little bit clearer what's going on. But at this point, I was starting to get my head around it. Well, first I want to talk about a little bit about identity in Python. So the Python separates out the ideas of two things being the same as each other and being the same thing as each other. So these two pens, you could argue that these two are the same as each other, but they are not the same pen. There are two different pens here. And so these pens are equals equals the same as each other, but they are not, this pen is not this pen. So the place most Python programmers come across this, in my experience, is we're told that we should use is none instead of equals equals none. Because if you're working with a class and you don't know about the internals of the class, the person who has created the class can have defined how equals equals is going to work on an instance of that class. And they can say, well, this object is none, or this object is equals equals to none. But when you're actually trying to check if it's none rather than if that person has done that thing, you use is. You can use you can get the identity of a function with the ID function, or of an object rather, with the ID function. And just as an interesting aside to my aside, Python stores a single copy of all the integers from -5 to 256. So the ID of anytime you refer to 256, the ID of that is the same. But 257, every time you refer to 257, that's a different object. So that's why you would get this behavior here, just as an aside to my aside. Okay, so once more with ID. And if you're sick of running these same things over and over again, imagine how I felt that day. Okay. Oh no, I need to actually add the things. I need to show the files. Okay, so we import file A, and we still got our print statements in there. So we see our loose print statements in file B and then file A, and then we import file B and we don't see our print statement. And now I'm going to take a closer look at what's inside those enums. So in file A, that's the ID of the enum, and in file B, that's the ID of the enum. Now, if we reload file A, and then check, they haven't changed. Both file A and file B are this specific enum member1 object. But if we reload file B, the one in file A is still the same one it was before, but the one in file B is a different ID. And that's what's been going on this whole time. That's why the two things that fundamentally were supposed to be the same were not the same. And that's how I lost that workday and how I hope to save you from losing similar ones. The conclusions here I came to here. Import lib.reload is not going to reload things that are loaded as from X import Y. It actually will reload them if you are using import file B and then referring to it as file B.myenum within file A. So if you have import file B here, I'm not going to go through the whole demo again, but if you have import file B here and then inside in your interpreter, you refer to file A.file B.myenum.enum member1. When you reload file B, that will work, that will change. But if you do this here and import file B and then set file B, myenum within the file A file to be file B.myenum, you're still going to have this problem because it sets it then and it doesn't go back looking for it every time. I actually learned that I could have worked around it like this while I was writing these slides. And it's particularly frustrating because our internal style guide tells me that I should always import import the whole library rather than from library import thing I'm interested in. And I was just being lazy by doing it the from way. So. And the other thing is that the identity of the enum is set when the file is imported. When Python gets to the definition of the class, that's when that actually happens. That's it. I'm Sorcha. If you are looking for me online, I am Saley at pretty much everything. Like if I'm not Saley at on a website, I'm probably not on the website.
Thanks,
so,
Sorcha.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I kind of I remember those pains. You're like in the interpreter and you're like, why isn't this working? Totally.
When it wasn't happening to my colleague, I thought I was just going crazy. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't happen? And it was we were already all working from home, so I couldn't even bring him over to my desk and show him it happening on mine.
So yeah, so to everyone on live chat, I know we still have a few minutes to spare. But if people have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, as I said, put them on either the event page on Meetup or post them on the CryptPad, and I will actually hold on. I will. So yeah, so if everyone kind of just post your questions either on the CryptPad here or on the event page on Meetup, which is this link here. Just go to Meetup and look for PyLadies for August event, and I'll pass on the information or the questions to the speakers, and they can share their answers. And I'll do, as I said before, I'll post up a post-event message to everyone who's RSVP'd on a Meetup page. And again, that CryptPad is open and public to everyone, so you can check it anytime. And this video, which has been live streamed on YouTube, will be available for replay as well. I suppose I want to let's probably just make it easier. Let's just handle the Q&A like that for now. And I'd like to thank our speakers, Enrico and Sorcha, for their time to give us talk. To Lay and Michael, especially Michael running in telling me like that you're not mute. So more things to learn about this streaming thing. This live streaming thing is really causing me a lot of stress. So and thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening, and being very patient, and I think we're getting there. And again, thanks for all your support. Thanks to everyone. And I suppose switch back to here to a review to everyone. So I suppose that's Enrico there, and that's the team there, all the speakers.
Right.
So hello everyone.
Fine.
And I should have done that right at the beginning. I'll do that next time. But again, thanks to everyone for helping out and getting involved. And again, there's so many things out there that like from CircuitPython Day to if you want to get involved with PyLadies itself, you can nominate yourself or put yourself forward to join their council. So it's making one way to contribute to the community. And then there's Going Far as well, and their mentoring program. But any other kind of questions you have or anything you want me to pass on to people after the meetup, email dublin@pyladies.com. So thanks everyone for your time this evening, and that's it. Bye.